on an all-new Dr. Phil. A shocking follow-up.
Joshua Hilberling fell from the 25th floor.
A marriage shattered.
Did you intentionally? No, of course not.
The young bride sentenced to 25 years for second-degree murder. But now...
I called the prison. Someone answered and said 3 words. She is dead. Click.
How did their daughter die in prison?
They're calling it a suicide. Do you think she killed herself?
A parent's nightmare.
Somebody posts ding dong, the witch is dead.
The exclusive interview.
They said that your daughter hung herself with a curling iron cord.
What did the cameras show? It was a fatal fall that made shocking headlines. A handsome groom fell to his death through a 25th story window, allegedly during a heated argument with his beautiful bride. On the outside, the newlyweds seemed like the picture-perfect couple. But the honeymoon was long over. Amber and Josh Hilberling hadn't even been married for a year when police say a heated argument led to a murder conviction. Amber, who was 19 and pregnant at the time, admits she pushed her new husband, but that he tripped and plunged to his death in a tragic accident.
Fatal fall from a Tulsa high-rise apartment.
Investigators say 23-year-old Joshua Hilberling fell from the 25th floor of the University Tower.
Investigators say the deadly plunge was the result of an argument between Hilberling and his pregnant wife, Amber.
Did you intentionally? No, of course not.
She admitted she pushed him, but said it was out of self-defense and she never meant to hurt him.
You knew this was an accident. This was not something that was in the scope or range of your daughter's behavior.
Absolutely not. Amber and Josh's marriage was less than perfect. Josh was a very abusive, manipulating, controlling drug addict.
Josh and Amber's arguments were becoming physical.
Even trying to break her breast implants with his hands.
Amber filed a complaint with the Air Force about abuse she says she suffered from Josh.
It was a cycle of abuse.
Amber Hilberling and her grandmother were in a police interrogation room waiting to talk to a detective, and they were unaware they were being recorded.
He kept saying, if we stay together, I'm gonna kill him. I don't deserve to live.
They hadn't read her rights. She wasn't being questioned. These are emotional utterances. She's digging herself a hole here.
That is the evidence that they used in the trial.
Guilty. That's the verdict jurors handed down to Amber Hilberling.
She was convicted of second-degree murder.
For the rest of my life, everyone's gonna think I'm a murderer.
Amber was offered a plea deal of 5 years, but she said she was so sure of her innocence that she refused to take it. The case went to trial, and Amber was convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to 25 years in prison. She spoke to us from behind bars and vowed she would prove her innocence. Tell me what your objective is in talking to me today.
I want my side of the story out. I want all the things that the jury wasn't allowed to hear, that the judge ruled were inadmissible. I believe that if they were talked about in open court, then I don't believe the jury would have convicted me.
The medical examiner could not say whether Josh Hilberling came out the window facing forward or back first.
Did you push him out that window?
No, I did not.
Yes, you did.
I didn't.
You did push him out that window. Did you push him?
I pushed him off of me.
And he fell out the window.
And he tripped backwards and fell out the window.
But for you pushing him, he's not dead. You understand? That's why you're here.
I mean, nobody's ever put it like that.
Now, when you were in the interrogation room with your grandmother, you said, I am such a bad person, I don't deserve to live. You were recorded as saying that.
I don't deserve to be a mom. Josh deserves to be a dad. And Josh isn't even a person anymore.
Why did you say those things?
I couldn't believe what had just happened. Then you're trying to catch up with reality, and
what did you want to tell that jury that you did not tell them?
That there were several occasions on which Josh was violent towards me. He loved to break my phone all the time.
Why was that important to you?
Because at trial, The picture was painted that Josh was just an innocent bystander and I was a crazy, pregnant, violent woman that ran up and caught Josh off guard and killed him.
And what else did you want them to know?
That I loved Josh very much. And I stayed with him for as long as I could. I mean, they painted me as a monster. They didn't know that it was breaking my heart just to have him leave. So to intend to kill somebody that you love that much, I mean, it couldn't be plausible. It couldn't.
You said, even with what the jury heard and didn't hear, that you didn't think they should convict you.
Right.
You thought even with them hearing this,
I can see where it would look bad in this.
I think this may be the card from the beginning that made me believe in you the most. Does that surprise you?
There's always going to be a level of guilt because I'm alive and he's not.
Today, a shocking end to this tragic story that no one saw coming. Just a few weeks ago, we got an alarming text from Amber's mother. It said, Amber is dead. The prison claimed Amber committed suicide in her cell by hanging.
Breaking news. We have now confirmed a Tulsa woman convicted of pushing her husband out of that window has died while in custody.
Hilberling killed herself on Monday. A source inside tells us that she was found hanging in her cell at 5:30 Monday evening.
The medical examiner ruled her death a suicide this afternoon.
She had served around 3 years of the 25-year sentence and leaves behind a little boy.
It was reported that Amber was found hanging by another inmate. But was it really suicide? Amber's parents say they do not believe their daughter took her own life. What really happened to Amber? In an exclusive interview with Amber's mother, Rhonda, and stepfather, Brian, they say they will stop at nothing to find out. I'm so sorry for what's happening, and how are you holding up?
We're still pretty numb, still expecting phone calls, and
we're falling apart, and I don't know how to not fall apart.
We got to figure out what the hell happened here. Why did you decide to come here and talk?
You know, I had every media outlet call, 24/7 our phone, and I said I won't speak to anyone. I'll speak to one person and one person alone. That was you. People asked me why I was doing it soon, because I want to heal. And I want to find a way to move on. And I felt like until I told the world and I could put that behind me, then we could move on. And somehow, I mean, we need to be there for Levi. And I knew that you were the only person I trusted. Amber was the same way.
First off, she was in for how long now?
5.5 years.
And during this time, what's been your pattern of contact with her?
Daily phone calls, every day.
So we were seeing her, 25 times a year.
Wow.
Bringing Levi up so that he had time to spend with him.
And holidays and special visit days. I sent a picture of Levi every day.
So you weren't shielding him from this or her at all?
No.
And he referred to the prison where he went how?
As Mommy's house.
So he's now 5, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you talked about prison as Mommy's house, and his understanding was that she was there to be protected, right?
Because she was so pretty. That's what he used to say. Mommy was so pretty. They have to have the guards around her.
So that was his concept of this. And what was your assessment of her mindset leading up to this?
I knew Amber was sad, but Amber was sad the entire time she was there.
Right.
She was an innocent girl in prison and did not know how to play this game. What she used to call play the game. Mom, I don't know how to do this.
Right.
And so to say that she wasn't sad, of course she's sad. She's wrongly accused of murdering her husband. She's away from her child. But she wasn't suicidal.
She had never
talked
about that, and just recently the night before, talking on the phone. The whole conversation, she was talking about things happening in the future and what Levi was going to be on Halloween, and you know, if he was going to be Batman, she was going to be Robin, and look forward to seeing the pictures. And
you have an emergency number for them to call, and this is the Mabel Bassett Correctional Facility. They call that number and leave a message. Call us immediately.
They called our work.
I was still at work.
He calls me home, and there was this pit in my stomach. I literally started shaking because they had both of our cell numbers. The prison did. Why they called our work number, we were unsure of. So I call, and I get hung up on.
What do you mean hung up on?
They wouldn't talk to me.
Well, I call asking whoever the operator was, said that just got a phone call, we needed to call back, and he said, I have no idea who made that phone call, you're just going to have to wait till they call you back.
And then they would transfer us, and then that line would go to a voice line, and so I just kept trying. And then finally someone answered the phone, and I still don't know who it was, and they uttered 3 words. She is dead. Click.
I was still at the office, and I got the text that said, Amber's dead, come home.
And I dropped to the floor. Honestly, I don't remember a whole lot of it. I was screaming at the top of my lungs. And Levi came over, and he was so worried. I think either our daughter got home or Brian made it first. And we were in shock.
What goes through your mind when you hear that?
I was like, there's no way she's dead. This is a mistake. And then I thought maybe she's hurt. And if they can just tell me where she's at, and I will do CPR on her. I will give her an IV fluid. I will do what I need to do as a nurse. And Brian's a doctor, so we can save her. We just wanted to get to where she was at, and they wouldn't even tell us where she was at. They didn't tell us how she died. It was just, she's dead. She is dead. And so I called until 2 o'clock that morning. 2 o'clock.
For another 8 hours.
In shock.
Before anybody would talk to you?
They still didn't talk to us.
They still wouldn't talk. I finally got through. I asked to speak to someone in medical, and the only thing I got was, we're calling it a suicide. He wouldn't give how, what happened, any details whatsoever.
Do you know who called you from the jail? Who said the words, she is dead?
We don't know. I don't know if it was the warden. I don't know if it was the PR person. I think by 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm in such shock, and I'm so angry. And not only am I calling, but her biological dad is calling. I honestly think I called your producer, and I said, maybe you'll get answers, because I won't.
Then you get from medical that they're calling it a suicide.
They told me to watch the news.
We begin tonight with the prison death of Amber Hilberling, convicted of murdering her husband Josh.
And what did you learn on television?
We found out that she hung herself on the news.
And how did she hang herself? How did they say she hung herself?
Coming up.
I said, what, did you see her body hanging up on something? And she said, no, she was already on the floor. And I said, then how do you know she hung herself? They denied access to an autopsy.
Why?
We now return to a Dr. Phil exclusive.
And what did you learn on television?
We found out that she hung herself on the news.
We have confirmed this morning that Hilberling killed herself at the Mabel Bassett Correctional Facility in McLeod on Monday. A source inside Mabel Bassett tells us that she was found hanging in her cell at 5:30 Monday evening.
It was actually on Facebook, too.
Someone sends me a message saying, ding dong, the witch is dead. And it came from a Hilberling. And I was in shock. And when I looked down and it said on there, she finally hung herself. I thought that was the most horrible thing.
Please don't look at that stuff.
I won't. And I don't care what anyone thought about the situation. Like, we knew the truth. We knew Amber was innocent. So to me, we just had a loss of a child that wasn't supposed to happen. She wasn't supposed to be there. She should have never been there, and this would have never happened.
None of this should have ever happened.
They tortured her from day one, though. Day one, because she lived in a high-rise apartment and was a beautiful, what they deemed wealthy kid. And they were going to make an example out of her because he was a military hero. The prison tortured my child.
I understand that this was at a time that she shouldn't have been alone.
No.
This was at 5:30 p.m. This is a gathering time.
Right.
How did they say she hung herself?
We didn't find out that until 2 days later. We get a call from Public Relations, DOC, and said, I know this is hard to accept, but your daughter hung herself, and she did it with a curling iron cord. Was so matter of fact,
yeah,
rude.
She said, I know the signs. It says all the signs.
I've already talked to the girls in the prison, and the girls say that she hung herself. And I said, what, did you see her body hanging up on something? And she said, no, she was already on the floor. And I said, then how do you know she hung herself? And she said, because I know there's signs. And I said, I don't believe you. And she was rude. She was rude.
And they say she was alone.
Told when someone got to her, two girls were already doing CPR on her.
Well, what did the cameras show in terms of who was going in and out of the pod?
I asked what the cameras showed, and she said the cameras don't show who goes in that particular cell, and we haven't had an opportunity to have someone look at them.
And they won't give us any information. They didn't even tell us, like, the belongings, which hospital she was at, where her body was going if she really was dead.
In Oklahoma, you're entitled to a second autopsy, right?
Yeah.
So what did that show?
We know a medical examiner in Tulsa, and he had talked to the medical examiner in Oklahoma City requesting from us that he be present during the autopsy.
Second opinion?
A second opinion.
To be present at that first autopsy, and they denied him,
yeah.
Even though he specifically said what the statute was. And then he contacted the Attorney General, who, according to the medical examiner, also denied that his access.
They denied access to an autopsy.
Why?
That's what I want to know.
What reason did they give?
They didn't give a reason.
She said on the phone, she said, well, I wouldn't want someone watching me do my job.
How long was it before you were able to see Amber?
Not until last Friday.
How many days had it been?
5 days.
5 days before you were able to see her?
Mm-hmm.
And what was that like for you?
The most painful thing I've ever done in my life. I thought the trial was painful. I thought watching them put away an innocent girl was painful. Feeling those calls as a mother every time she would call, screaming at the top of her lungs, like how unfair this was, but nothing was as painful as watching her lay in a coffin. Not even looking like herself. It was just a body, because that wasn't my daughter. It didn't even look like my daughter. Amber was smiling, and she had these big blue eyes and this beautiful smile, and jumped still like a little kid sometimes. And to see her still, and how they had her neck down because they didn't want me to see any marks on her neck. I think one of the worst things to call is when he asked me, he told me, you'll need to bring long sleeves and a high neck dress. I didn't understand, and I still don't, how she had this black stuff on her face that seemed like it was just so dark, and I didn't know if it's because it had been so long since the body.
You know, when you think about this, and you think about she's in prison, she's in trial, then she's in prison, and now she's gone.
To me, the world killed her. I mean, everything in this was wrong. We can't even, we try, Brian and I sit down and we try to think, what's the one thing that went wrong? Everything went wrong. Everything.
And then somebody posts, ding dong, the witch is dead. And it was somebody, you presume, from...
Oh, 100% we know.
Yeah, it was a family member.
From the family member of her husband.
I mean, how cruel is that? To be so cruel? I mean, that doesn't even make sense. But that was the character, and that's what no one would listen to. Just because you're a tall, good-looking guy doesn't make you not an abuser. They just thought because Amber was a spoiled little girl, according to the world, which she wasn't, that she couldn't be abused. And that there was no way this military guy would ever hit a girl. Well, he did. And we saw the bruises. I've never said Amber was this innocent baby that had never done anything wrong as a teenager. Of course she did, but she wasn't a murderer.
What do you think happened? Do you think she killed herself?
Coming up.
The stories
None of them
are
add
different.
up. We got actual word from a guard that we better investigate.
It sounds like somebody is trying to cover something up.
We now return to Dr. Phil's exclusive interview.
Hilberling's former attorney says he warned administrators at Mabel Bassett Women's Prison twice in recent weeks that she was suicidal.
He says Amber told him she had gotten into trouble and her punishment was no visitation for the next 3 months. He said she was devastated because she's been seeing her son twice a month, and the next 90 days would include Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas.
Told the warden that I was concerned that Amber was not going to live through the holidays without being able to see Levi. And the warden said, "I'm not discussing this with you."
What do you think happened? Do you think she killed herself?
I don't know.
We don't know.
I mean, that's the hardest part. I don't know if finally it just got to her and she snapped, or if someone killed her. And if they did kill her, they'd cover it up. I know that. I'm a mom. I'm a grown-up. Having to call to protect her. I mean, there was times I would have to call because of the stuff that was happening in that prison, and no one cares. Here's what they would tell me. Rhonda, that's prison. It's not the Four Seasons, it's prison.
Did she have a curling iron?
Yes, she probably did. She had
And those were permitted?
curling irons, straight irons.
Did they say how she hung herself with it? From what?
No, we don't know anything.
Inmates that have reached out, some people that have heard from guards, the stories
None of them add
are
up.
different. Our speculation, if these people are telling us stories from being witnesses, but yet they're not the same stories, then it sounds like somebody is trying to cover something up. We don't know what that is.
What makes you suspect of a cover-up or foul play?
We got actual word from a guard that worked there that said the treatment that goes on in that place that we better investigate. That was from an actual guard that quit because she could not believe this is our system. I don't take the prison's word for anything that they've ever done in 5 years. You know, Amber would beg me not to call the prison when I knew certain things because she knew the retaliation against her was going to be worse.
And she had friction with some of the inmates, right? She had done a British documentary.
Mm-hmm. She started getting all this flack, and they started making names for her because they thought she was above the rules because she got special privileges, and then channels, you know, she got wrote every week when news stations wanted to do interviews with her. Well, I already knew at this point that I don't trust 99% of the media. I trust who I'm sitting in front of, but I don't. I don't trust them.
Thank you for that, and I'll try to be a good steward of that trust.
And Amber felt the same way. She told us that.
Well, let's talk about her level of adjustment on the downside, because you say during these 5 years, she had some dips in there.
Oh.
She did have some terrible depression. She was getting picked on, and she told you she was having nightmares, right?
Severe nightmares.
What were the nightmares?
Seeing Josh's body. Like, she tried to catch Josh. Like, a lot of people think that she pushed him out the window. She actually, and that was proof, she's got a cut on her hand. She was actually had the shoe and tried to catch him as he was falling. And then she's the first one on the scene. And she's trying to put his body back together. Unless you've served in war, you would never see a scene like that, much less being 7 months pregnant. She had PTSD. We're medical people. We knew she was suffering, but they'd give her Benadryl throughout the prison years. She had horrible nightmares.
Did she receive treatment for her PTSD?
No.
Did she receive treatment for her depression?
No, not that we're aware of, no.
Was she on any kind of antidepressant medication?
No. Not that I'm aware of, no.
She clearly had the trauma, and she was having flashbacks to it. She met the criteria. PTSD would certainly be on my short list of considerations.
Right. And you know, the guards would make it worse because instead of helping her, they would walk by her and say stuff like, you know, don't get too close to the glass, Hilberling. I mean, who does that?
And you know that how?
She would tell us.
She would tell you that?
She told us some
Other people would
things.
tell us. I'm learning more stuff as more people are talking.
We've seen in one of the social media, we had someone forward this message from somebody that had volunteered and saw Amber being pushed across the yard wearing a muzzle.
To mock her.
Wearing a muzzle?
A muzzle, a dog muzzle.
Who?
Coming up.
It makes Mommy almost burst when you're so close to me and I can't touch you. Soon, baby, soon. It doesn't sound to me like someone that is checking out. Closed captioning provided by...
We now return to a Dr. Phil exclusive.
Amber's mother posted this about her death. It says in part, "Fly baby girl to the angels, away from the pain on this earth. The media, the haters, the Hilberlings got their wish. Hope they are happy. I will never stop fighting for the truth." Josh's parents posted this, "We know how it feels to lose a child. I wouldn't wish that on anyone. It's something no parent should have to experience. Condolences to those who loved her."
I'm learning more stuff as more people are talking.
We had someone forward this message from somebody that saw Amber being pushed across the yard wearing a muzzle.
To mock her.
Wearing a muzzle?
A dog muzzle.
Who?
He saw the guards pushing her across the yard and she was wearing a muzzle.
She was cutting some.
Yeah, pretty severe. I mean, we had talked to her every visit about it. She was on her wrist. She would start hiding it at the end. I mean, she's actually been cutting them for about 3 years, I think.
Is that why they needed long sleeves for the body?
I think.
One time she cut herself deep enough that she thought that she might have
done something to almost kill herself. She called us. The cut was pretty deep. And then I went for a special visitation, and she said it was bad enough to where she went to the infirmary to get treatment because she thought it could kill her. Well, once again, that's not suicidal.
Did the tox screen show any drugs?
We haven't heard.
No, we don't. They said it may take 3 weeks.
But we're not going to be surprised. She was self-medicating. I mean, I'd gotten on to her. Like, I don't know. I know they bring in drugs, the guards do. We've heard that she was brought in cigarettes that were laced that made her pass out for 2 days.
People that commit suicide have some common elements about them. They believe that people in their lives are better off without them. They think they're a burden. They begin to exhibit really high-risk behaviors, like they're not afraid of dying, obviously, because they've made the decision. Oftentimes you see a real upswing in their attitude and demeanor because they've made the decision and they're short-termers, so they've got a plan to escape their suffering. So you see a lift in mood because they've got their ticket out. There are just different things that you see sometimes with depressed people. And I've been through her letters that you provided between August and October, and she was taking college courses full time. She had a 4.0. You see an absence of forward thinking with people that are going to kill themselves. They don't make reference to next week, next year, next month, because they're not going to be there. And they know that. And I read things from her letters. "I can promise you that your mama has enough love for you that you will never go without." She's speaking about Levi. She's talking about his daddy. "When you miss him one day and feel alone, I will do all I can to remind you that he is always with you." This is forward thinking. I know you're going to miss your daddy. And she spoke well of his father to him. "It makes Mommy almost burst when you're so close to me and I can't touch you. Soon, baby, soon. We are almost there." It doesn't sound to me like someone that is checking out. Maybe the pendulum swung the other way and she just snapped and gave up. I guess that could be a possibility.
Coming up.
I'm angry. I want answers. I'm angry either way, whether it was a suicide or a murder.
Closed captioning provided by...
We now return to Dr. Phil's exclusive interview.
The DA says had Amber accepted their plea bargain, she might have been out of prison by now, but he said instead she chose not to accept responsibility for her actions. And now we're left with a situation where there are no winners.
I read things from her letters. Soon, baby, soon. We are almost there. It doesn't sound to me like someone that is checking out. Maybe the pendulum swung the other way and she just snapped and gave up. I guess that could be a possibility.
But the night before, she was talking about Halloween, that she couldn't wait to get his pictures. If she was going to commit suicide, she would have written Levi a book.
Yeah, she would have given him something to
I mean, she just
She would have left something for him. In one letter, she says, God knows this is almost over and then we can be together again.
There's nothing on that letter that I've ever read that I felt she was suicidal. I can promise you, I would have called the prison. I've been told lots of time, Mommy, quit calling the prison. We know Mommy. Mommy, quit calling the prison. She's a big girl. I would have called and said she was suicidal and had her put on suicide watch if I would have known she was suicidal.
You talk to her 2 or 3 times a day, she would tell you.
I still look at my phone, and her picture comes up on my phone when it calls. And Levi had ran, and he has my phone sometimes, and he goes, Mommy's not dead, Mommy's not dead. She's calling. And I grabbed that phone, and it was another inmate. And Levi just looks at me, and I said, no, honey, that's not Mommy, it's just Mommy's picture.
How is he wrapping his head around this?
Well, he understands. When we told him, he said, well, then is she with Daddy?
Yes. And then he said, is she with Peanut?
Peanut, which is one of Rhonda's mom's dogs that had just recently passed on.
And I said, yep, Peanut's up there too. And he said, well, at least they're a family.
What will happen with Levi now?
We're going to adopt him fully. I mean, he's already ours. I mean, we've raised him since birth. He slept on my chest that first night, so has always slept in her bed. I mean, we'll continue to do what we're doing and continue to raise him to know Mommy and Daddy and the best parts of Mommy and Daddy. I don't know how to explain this to him. We don't even know how to feel right now.
Yeah.
Like one time we're crying, the next you're still thinking that this is a dream. And then the next moment you're holding your kids and you're on the floor bawling. I mean, and I have to be honest, and I don't know if it's normal, but I'm angry. I want answers. I'm angry either way, whether it was a suicide or a murder. Because either way, she's dead.
You're absolutely entitled to that anger, and you need to give yourself that permission. The first response of any parent when they hear that their child has taken their own life is, no, they didn't do it. It can't be right. Mm-hmm. What I do know is that you are entitled to absolute and full transparency. I want to do everything I can to help you get that. The way to do that is not to run up the stairs with your hair on fire, yelling accusations at everybody, because that will cause people to close ranks and make it more difficult to get what you want. But you are entitled to full transparency, and with your permission, I will begin that task immediately. When somebody dies on somebody's watch, then it has to be documented, and then once they write that down, they're married to that story, and that either checks out or it doesn't, and then you find out what's going on, and she either killed herself, and if there's foul play here and somebody had a hand in it, you want to know that.
I want to know.
You just want to know what happened, because it will help you to heal a lot better if you know that. And you're entitled to all of the answers, right?
Yes.
And let's get them. Let's get all the answers. It's not going to bring her back, but you're entitled to the answers. Her son is entitled to the answers. And his mother's dead. His father is dead. And if we can intervene here, and it's not bullying people around to get answers, there's ways to do this, and we'll find out what we can, get some things done.
We would love that, and thank you for your help.
We reached out to Terry Watkins, the communications director for the Oklahoma Department of Corrections, and she responded to the allegations made by Rhonda and Brian. While she declined to give an official statement, she adamantly denied that Amber was abused by the staff at Mabel Bassett Correctional Center in McLeod, Oklahoma, and said every individual in their custody is treated with respect and care. She also denied there was any cover-up in connection with Amber's death. We'll be right back.
We now return to a Dr. Phil exclusive.
Is there anything that you want to say or talk about that we haven't said or talked about?
I want the world to know that Amber was innocent of a crime. I mean, she was convicted of a crime she didn't commit. I don't want them to forget that this was a little girl that got her life robbed, no matter how it happened. And that we can stop this, but we'll just stop. And I want people to know that.
Yeah, I agree that she was full of life and love.
Amber wanted that more than anything. Her cause was to stop hate. You know, she didn't even hate people she thought she should hate. She just didn't have it in her. And we don't want to hate people. I mean, we want to be able to, hate does nothing. So I mean, if anything, I want the world to know that, you know, stop the hate. Save people. Listen to both sides of the story.
Well, I think that's important, and I think two young people have lost their lives here. Look, Josh was not an evil guy.
No.
These were two young people that were finding their way along, and both of them were making mistakes here and there. This was a tragic accident, and I'm heartbroken for Josh and his family, and now two young people's lives have been lost, and that's terrible.
And we want Levi to never experience hate. We want him to know both positive things about everyone, and we will always, we love Josh too, and we're gonna miss both of them, but they're together.
Look, right now, I know you guys are in shock, but when you're ready, there's something I would like to offer for you to do. Closed captioning provided by... Look, right now, I know you guys are in shock, but when you're ready, there's something I would like to offer for you to do. There's a place called On-Site. It's a beautiful place. It's a ranch in Tennessee, and they do therapeutic workshops for people, retreats that are customized for people that have been through trauma. Horses, just all kinds of equine therapy, all kinds of different things where you can call time out and say, you know what, I'm going to put myself in the shop for a couple of weeks here, and I would like to make that arrangement for y'all to go down and do that if you would. I think it would really decompress you a lot. It would be wonderful if you could go together. I would very much recommend that because y'all have been through so much. You got to take care of you. I mean, you got Levi to think of. So I'd like to make that arrangement for y'all. And you can go anytime from this afternoon to a month.
We would love that. We would love that so much. We've always said it felt like we were living in a novel, and this was just the worst ending.
Well, we need to not let this story die.
No.
Thank you. See that picture of her, and I think she's not hurting anymore.
It would have been easier for y'all to stay home, draw the blinds, and sit in the dark, but you came here today to talk, and I'm honored that you did, and I thank you for coming here. I'm glad you came. I really am. I want to give a special thanks to Miles Adcox of On-Site in Tennessee. We're going to closely follow Amber's story, and if there are any new developments, we will update this story. There are now 3 victims of this newlywed tragedy: Josh, Amber, and their son Levi. We'll pray for the families of everyone who lost a loved one. And we wish Rhonda and Brian and Levi healing during this difficult time. We also wish continued healing to Joshua's family. For more information, go to drphil.com. Thanks for watching.